I did want to bring, well, now that we had you on, I asked you, is there something we want to really dive into? And the James Reimer situation, the whole deal with Pride jerseys over the past month has been something that we don't typically talk about these type of things around the hockey world on the show, but I know that you're somebody who's passionate about this and I think knows a lot more than I about this as well. So I think a lot of people know the situation. There's been multiple players throughout the season, Provorov, Reimer, that have denied or rejected to wear these Pride jerseys, these jerseys that I think are all about inclusion, which, listen, I'm not an expert on the LGBTQIA plus. I think I nailed that.
Nice.
Didn't even read that, but I'm not an expert on the topic. But I think I'm in the camp of I really do think everybody should be able to be the person that they are and be able to express themselves as they would like. That makes them happy. As long as they're happy, then that's the way that I look at it. And I just think it's kind of sad that players don't want to back inclusion. That's the way I look at it with this situation. I look at this as inclusion. I don't look at this as putting on a rainbow flag as against somebody's morals or their thoughts on whatever it may be. I think it's a really bad look for the sport to not be in the camp of inclusion being something that should be acceptable and should be a daily thing that's promoted by this league. And that's my feeling on the situation. I don't know where you want to go with this. I do have a couple graphics that we can get to. First, I'd love to show the Sharks jersey was gorgeous. I love this thing. I love, seeing some of the jerseys that come out. What a beautiful looking logo. I mean, and awesome, just incredibly well done here from the Sharks. I'm not sure where you want to start with this. I got my piece out.
Yeah, no, that's great. You just throw 2S in front of all those letters and you're golden.
Okay.
No, it's a complicated subject in some ways, because like there are a lot of people who struggle with including everyone.
Sure.
There's a lot of different belief systems out there in the world that reject certain people because of who they are and who they love, and it's difficult. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I've been there. Like James Reimer, I grew up in the Mennonite church, maybe a slightly larger community in Chilliwack rather than on the prairies. But like James Reimer, I grew up believing a lot of pretty hateful things. I'm now making assumptions about James Reimer here. I have to say that outright. I'm assuming certain things when he says that, like I believe in Jesus Christ and this is what my belief system is and this is why I'm not wearing the jersey. He likely believes that being gay is a sin. He likely believes that trans people are just mentally ill or confused, and these are very hurtful beliefs, but they're probably ones that he's heard right from a very young age, because I heard them right from a very young age.
Yeah.
I grew up in the church hearing about the gay agenda. I grew up hearing about all these different things being sinful, and not just sinful, but destroying society. Like that these were going to damage not just the people who, are this way, but that it would destroy the larger society. These were actually things I heard in church. Like these. So I have to assume that that's the reason why this is happening. The reason why he didn't want to wear the jersey, because he feels like he would be supporting something evil. Now, when he says that, like, I love everyone, that's what I believe too.
Right.
When I was in the church growing up, I believed that I loved everyone. And a lot of people would say, oh, well, you'll hate the sin, but love the sinner. But doesn't work. You can't hate the sin and love the sinner when what you're hating is a fundamental part of who a person is.
Right.
And it took a long time for me to grow out of those beliefs, because it was just everywhere. It was just expected. It was this bubble that I lived in. And it took me a long time to realize that those beliefs were very hurtful. I had a couple of friends, very dear friends of mine from the past, who I found out later came out, and they didn't want to tell me. because they thought I would hate them.
Hmm.
And like that's heartbreaking because like my beliefs have changed drastically over the years, and I now have trans and queer people in my family. I have trans friends, and the idea that someone wouldn't be willing to be their true authentic self with me, like that's heartbreaking. And that tells me like, oh my goodness, what I believed, and what did I say something that made them think that I would hate them? Like it was just this eye-opening experience of like, oh my goodness, I am not as loving and kind as I thought I was. And like that hurts. And
Yeah.
I know that I have hurt people in the past. And it's not like I was like vocally anti-LGBTQ.
No, but I think what you
No.
mentioned there was like people were scared to tell you that, right? Like that's difficult enough in its own right. And I think that's why these nights are important because it's promoting it's promoting inclusion. Like that is
Yes.
what the goal is. Can we get the quote from Brian Burke up here? I thought this was great. Who like props to Brian Burke. Listen, old hockey guy, very supportive of inclusion. I am just going to read the quote here for the people on the podcast listening. This is from Brian Burke talking about the Sharks Pride Night. He said, "I repeat that I am extremely disappointed. I wish players would understand that the Pride sweaters are about inclusion and welcoming everybody. A player wearing Pride colors or tape isn't endorsing a set of values or enlisting in cause. He is saying you are welcome here, and you are in every single NHL building." That's the way I look at this. Like maybe players are seeing it a different way, but I think a vast majority of folks are seeing this as inclusion and just making that what it should be about.
Yeah. And the problem is that there is a whole um, system right now, especially in the US, but not just in the US, that is really pushing this idea that especially trans people is who they're targeting first,
Mhm.
that trans people are um, grooming kids,
Right.
like that they are attacking kids, that they're hurting kids. That's the number one thing they keep bringing up. It's all about the kids, it's all about the children, but it's not, because you've seen there's laws that are now targeting trans people in the US and in various states. And there's this propaganda machine that is going out that is saying these people who are just living their lives are actually trying to do something terrible. They're trying to hurt women. They're trying to, and it's none of it is true. Like I said, I have trans people in my family. And some of them knew from a very young age that's who they were, and they knew right away. And it maybe took them some time to really grapple with all of the various aspects of that, but that's just who they are.
Mm.
And I think that most likely what happened, and I'm speculating here with the James Reimer situation, when you posted that picture of the San Jose Sharks logo, that shark is in the colors of the trans flag. And my suspicion is that Reimer, like a lot of people in the US, has heard this anti-trans propaganda and goes, well, I can't support that.
Yeah.
And I can't
It
be a
all
part of
ties
that.
together in some
I
people's
I, I,
eyes.
th- I think that's a big part of it. And it's not stopping with trans people in the US and in a lot of these states. Florida is especially bad right now. There have been bills that have been targeting gay marriage. There have been bills that are targeting a lot of different people. Drag drag queens are getting targeted in a lot of areas, and this is a complicated subject in some ways,
For
but in
sure.
other ways, it's not complicated at all. Just accept people, love them.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to understand every aspect of who they are to welcome them. And especially when we're talking about hockey, when we're talking about NHL buildings and NHL teams going, look, you're welcome here. You can be part of the hockey community. That's all that Pride Nights are supposed to be,
Yeah.
because hockey has been an area that has not been very accepting towards LGBTQ people. And I think it was who's the Luke Prokop? Is
Yeah,
that?
we do have
Yeah,
I have a part of his statement here as well. I did want to
yeah,
read this, but to your point there, good comment from Dave here. You can disagree with someone and still include them. I mean,
yeah,
that's a lot of things in life to my eyes. And it's like you had a good thing that you said there. Like, it's complicated, but it's not. To like just be able to include people. That's how I felt. Like just adjusting in life in 2023. There's a lot of things that I've had to change in my. I grew up in a small town in Imo that was mainly farm folk, and it wasn't the most inclusive time maybe in the 90s when I was growing up, or to that point. I'm very happy that the world's changed, and I'm happy that it's gotten better in my eyes, at least in this year. So continually trying to learn and work on things, but you're right, it's complicated, but it's not, I think.
Yeah.
To that point, let's get the Luke Prokop statement up here. I didn't get the full statement. There was just one part that I did want to read. And you can find this full thing on Twitter. This is from Luke Prokop. He said, "Everyone is entitled to their own set of beliefs, but I think it's important to recognize the difference between endorsing a community and respecting individuals within it. Pride nights are an essential step towards fostering great acceptance and understanding in hockey, and I strongly believe that by prioritizing diversity and inclusion, we can create an environment where every player feels comfortable bringing their authentic selves to the game. As someone who aspires to play on an NHL team one day, I would want to enter the locker room knowing I can share parts of my identity with my teammates."
Yeah. And I think with the James Reimer situation specifically, what he has said by not wearing a Pride Night jersey is that he is not going to accept that part of someone's identity. He may have a closeted, like, former teammates or current teammates who are closeted, who are afraid to share with him because of something like this.
Mm.
And I will say this, like I said in the past, I wasn't vocally anti-LGBTQ. I wasn't spewing hate towards people, but like, there can be subtler forms of homophobia and transphobia. And a lot of it can come out as pity almost. Like,
Mm.
I remember my mom, like, I love her and she's changed her views over time as well. But when Ellen DeGeneres came out as a lesbian, my mom's reaction was, "Oh, that's too bad."
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
and that is homophobia.
Right.
And it's subtle, and it's like you can pretend that you're a good person still while going like, "Well, I just feel bad for them." Like, no, that's terrible. You think they're going to hell. That is still homophobia. That's still hate, just disguised as pity. And I think we see that in Reimer's statement where he says that he, loves everyone, but you're not actually showing that love.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to wear a jersey saying you're welcome in hockey for 20 minutes, that's not love. That's not kindness.
No, and Karan asks, who is Luke Prokop? I believe the first openly gay, still not in the NHL, prospect, highly drafted prospect. But hopefully will be in the NHL one day here soon. Tell you what, the Canucks could use a big right shot defenseman, actually. Anyways, but that's the point. I think that from his quote that I wanted to bring up was like, how difficult is it for him now to walk into a room if he's playing on James Reimer's team?
Yeah, and I think the way this ties back to the Canucks as well is they have a Pride Night coming up.
Yeah,
and they have, so, like, I don't want to single them out, but they have Russian players on the team, and we've heard that that's one of the sticking points for some teams, is that they have Russian players that are worried about this because of the environment back home in Russia, which is virulently homophobic.
Yeah.
So there are some concerns because there's, and it's not just teammates of someone like James Reimer. If someone was a fan of James Reimer and they are trans or queer or gay, lesbian, bisexual, whatever it is, and they suddenly feel like, oh, this player that I loved isn't safe anymore, and he can't be my favorite player anymore. And then they start to question, well, can I have a favorite player?
Yeah,
because who knows, maybe that favorite player turns out, well, oh no, he hates a part of who I am and wouldn't welcome it and support it. And for Canucks fans out there who are part of the LGBTQ community, this Pride Night that's coming up might actually be a major source of stress, because they're looking at this going, is my favorite player going to refuse to wear a jersey that welcomes me into hockey? Like, that has to be a concern for a lot of people out there.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely something that we'll continue to have the conversation on. It's a big topic. I appreciate you spending a lot of time touching on it here. I've really enjoyed almost everybody in the chat chatting about this and joining in on the conversation. I appreciate it. I'm glad we spent some extra time on the show doing this, and I'm glad you were able to bring some insight here and help chat about it with me. Because like I said, otherwise I would have just came out here and told you that I'm from a small town and it's weird there. So I appreciate the help.